City lights humming, vinyl breathing cool. Two talking fools. Breaking rules while they laugh and cruise.
Everybody, good morning. It is Kate from the Two Talking Fools. I am here solo in the studio today. And kind of the best way I can explain what we're going to talk about on this podcast is I think I'm about to deliver something that's going to be revolutionary, that can help people, that can do things that we've never seen before, heard before, without the use of an additional medicine to your life. No medicine involved type product. I think we're on the brink of something absolutely crazy. It's hard for me to even keep my excitement together. For those of you that follow us on social media, you'll know that about 24 hours ago, I let you know that I have a product that I am bringing to the podcast because I feel strongly about it. But to even do further, I decided to put 3 people on this patch as an investment to see, does it really work? Can it really help people? So we're going to talk about this, but I'm very excited because I would not have had this product brought to me. I'm so excited. You could probably hear it in my voice. I wouldn't have this product brought to me had I not stumbled upon somebody. And fun fact about this, I stumbled upon who we're going to talk to today, our special guest. I stumbled upon his TikTok and have watched him almost religiously daily, and that's on God, for over 2 years. I have heard his spiel. I have listened to him. I have heard the critics attack him or, the typical fools on social media and whatnot, because we all deal with them. And he has a product that he is bringing to his audience, and I want to bring it to ours. As you guys also know, when we went down to the Well House and talked to Leanne Rickey, we talked about the word of the year, and I can tell you when I left with her, my word of the year is impact. What can I do with my time to make the biggest impact? And so I think today I'm bringing a product and a guest who's going to shed light on something that a lot of our viewers may have not heard about before, may not have thought it was even possible without visiting a doctor or a specialist or, getting these expensive surgeries, whatnot, okay? Without further ado, I want to welcome on the show Steve Sechler. Now, just to give you a little bit of a backstory, I've been watching Steve Sechler. That sounds so fucking weird, but it's true. I've been watching him. I've been a fan quietly. If I've sent him maybe 10 comments this whole time, but yeah, I've been a fan, and I don't know why it took so long to click, but everything happens for a reason. I know a little bit about Steve just from what he's talked about in his TikTok. I know at one time he was facing paralysis, a very unhealthy lifestyle. He's totally changed himself, and you really almost have to watch his videos to see just how his body has transformed. It's kind of incredible, and I believe he's 50 years old. So, without further ado, I want to welcome to the show the Two Talking Fools, Steve Sechler. Steve, thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you so much for the invite. I'm honored to be here. And already right out of the gate, you've said so much that's so humbling, and I greatly appreciate it. But you said the word impact, and I guess I've been doing something analogous to that, and I've been saying contribution, and I think those two words are probably interchangeable. As I've been on this journey this last several years, I've spent just thousands of hours doing self-development and just personal, strength training, both physically and mentally. And I was listening to a sales trainer talk about as we mature in life, we switch from a phase of accumulation. Our earlier part of our life, we're all about what can I get for me. And then in our later half of our life, we start contributing. And the old adage of it's better than to give than to receive, you don't really understand that until you really start living a life of servitude. So I've been on a mission to contribute, but in your case, impact other people's lives in a positive way. And I wake up every day thinking about how many people's lives I can impact or contribute to. And it's truly been rewarding. I'm honored to say that well over 1,000 people that have followed my social media have messaged me and said, Steve, I have really transformed my life. just with your basic common sense approach to my health. I haven't had to feel like it's been a struggle. It all makes sense. And I'm also very honored to say, in addition to that 1,000+ people, they'll tell me, hey, I'm down 40, 50, 60 pounds. I have actually 13 people down over 100 pounds. And when you think about the time that's added to people's lives, I truly feel blessed inside to have added that, and literally impacted their lives and their families' lives by probably adding longevity through some common sense approaches. And I'm just honored to be doing what I'm doing. And I a big self-development guy, and Zig Ziglar always used to say, you could have anything in life you want. If you live a life of servitude and serve a lot of people, the money will just work itself out. Don't think about that. Just have a positive effect on other people and live a life of servitude. So that's what I've been doing.
You've been doing it. You've been doing it well, but more interestingly, you've been doing it so consistently for. I've been following you, I would say 2.5 years, and I don't think you've missed a day except for when you celebrated your birthday. Isn't that weird that I know that?
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, that's actually one of the life hacks that I try to teach people is you don't have to be great at anything when you start, but what you have to do is be consistent, because you can win any battle or challenge you put yourself up to through consistency. And a good example of that is, if you went to the gym one day and spent 24 hours in the gym, you're actually not going to look any different. You're going to be hella sore. um, but if you take that same 24 hours and you spread it out over, say, 48 days at 38 hours a pop, you actually might have some physical differences where people go, man, you starting to work out? Yeah, I am. And so that's the truth of consistency over long periods of time. You can think about it like saving for your retirement. Well, if you start in your 20s, you can retire well in your 50s. But you can't start saving in your late 40s and retire in your early 50s. It just doesn't work like that. So I know consistency is a big life hack. And that's one of the things that I really try to teach people is, even if you only get a tiny bit percentage better each day, if you're getting better each day, it can be very impactful over a long enough period of time. And we undervalue what we can accomplish in a year, 2 or 3, and we overvalue what we can accomplish in a week or a few weeks. And that's just kind of one of the basis to the common sense approach that I teach people when I'm talking about overall diet and just health.
Let's can we dive into, I want to know when it like what's your story? How did you get to this point of trying to really just optimize health? Because I know it hasn't always looked like this.
No, I have a crazy medical background. When I was 26 years old, I was living my best life, making really decent money, and driving a new fancy Corvette, and just out drinking and partying every night, and just doing whatever I wanted to do. And one day, I had a really bad headache and a neck ache, and so debilitating that I literally laid in bed for 3 days. And my girlfriend at the time, on this would have been November 15th of 2000, she loaded me up in my truck and took me to my primary care physician. And I don't really remember much, but they wheeled me out of my primary care physician into an ambulance. And I remember the ambulance doors opening up. And that was the last thing I remembered until I saw fireworks from the Baptist Hospital in downtown Jacksonville on New Year's Eve, 45 days later. They had put me in a drug-induced coma because I had meningitis and 104.5 brain temperature. And ultimately, my meningitis turned into encephalitis, which the difference is basically an infection in your spinal fluid. And then when it gets really bad, it affects the cerebral fluid in the brain and becomes encephalitis and causes brain damage. So with 104.5 brain temperature, they kept me in a drug-induced coma. And I had liver failure, heart failure. They had to restart my heart 5 different times. I was on the ventilator for 3.5 weeks, which normally they'll only leave you on the ventilator for about 2 weeks before they do a tracheotomy. And, I was so infectious at one point, they had me in an isobaric room where no one could go in there, just look at me through the glass. And my infectious disease doctor, Dr. Myers, we just spent endless nights trying to research and figure out why viral meningitis was affecting me so bad. Because normally you'd only be in the hospital for maybe 5 or 6 days. Just bad infection, and they couldn't figure out what the secondary infection was that was making me so sick. But they called my dad out from California 5 different times and said he's not going to make it. You need to go and get here. And somehow kept hanging on. And my child's mother was 8 months pregnant, and she actually delivered the day after I left Baptist. And everyone, of course, and I was young and naive at the time, and everyone said, well, God kept you here for a reason. It's for that child. And so ultimately I left Baptist. I went in at 216 pounds, in pretty decent health at 26 years old, and came out at 150 pounds, and I was paralyzed from the chest down. Where they initially told my family I was never going to leave the hospital. Ultimately, I left there and went to do 6 weeks worth of rehab at Brooks Rehab Facility. And all they would do is teach me how to live in a wheelchair, which was quite frustrating because I didn't understand, why we weren't working on my legs. And as you can imagine, someone that walks around at 216 pounds one day and then they wake up the next day in their mind and they're 150 pounds in a wheelchair, that's quite devastating. I look like skin and bones, and I didn't even recognize myself in a mirror. And I spent, like I said, weeks at the rehab hospital, and very, very frustrating with me that all they would do is teach me how to, slide in and out of the wheelchair, on the toilet, try to figure out how to put socks on, stuff like that. I'm like, guys, I want to learn. I'll learn how to walk. And I had some pretty heated arguments with the physical therapists. With them, they're like, "That's not your diagnosis. You're in a wheelchair now. You need to accept how to, this." And so I have a unique perspective on medical providers, and I'm frustrated sometimes with traditional doctors and their unwillingness to count the human spirit. Yeah, they're highly educated, but they're also a little bit stubborn when it comes to people's faith or people's will or their fight. You don't know the fight in the dog. I mean, and
Yeah.
I'm someone that's very determined, and everyone was telling me you're never going to walk again. So after 6 weeks in the rehab hospital, wind up going home and doing home health care for the next couple of years. And my upper body was gaining back strength fairly significantly. So I'd have the wheelchair rolled up to the kitchen sink, grab the edge of the sink, and use my upper body to stand up, on my wobbly little skinny legs, and just continued like that for so long. But ultimately started using a cane to walk around, and being still of the mindset of a healthy 26-year-old that it was living his best life. I had my Harley sitting out in the garage, and I had a fold-up cane, and when I was starting to get around pretty decent on the cane, I hobble over to the Harley, and I'm strong enough to get it vertical, and I'm like, oh, what's I got a big old smile on my face, and so I start up my bike, and on a motorcycle, you push down for first gear, but it's up for neutral and the other upper gears. Well, I had the strength in my ankles to in my foot to push the bike into first gear. So I take off. I literally, I can't walk without a cane. I take off on my Harley because I put it in first gear. My upper body's strong, so I can pull the clutch in. Well, I get about maybe 300 yards down my street, and it's time to shift into second gear. And I leave there, biggest smile on my face. And when I realized the next few weeks, I started doing all these ankle exercises. I turn around. I was like, I'm going to ride my damn Harley. But so the next few years were quite interesting. I used a cane for about 5 years, but I looked pretty healthy. And people would be like, why do you need a cane? and even to date here, 26 years later, I still got terrible equilibrium, and I'll kind of bounce into a wall, walking around a corner, I'll cut it short or whatever. But I appear to be an extremely healthy person. So what that led to is the next 20 years of essentially living like an asshole, quite frankly, drinking, partying, smoking, raising hell, feeling like I was given a second chance. And I being a young idiot, I really treated it like I shouldn't be here so I could do anything I want to do. I shouldn't be here. If I'm gone tomorrow, it's okay. I had a second chance. And what I realized when I turned 47 was I'm still here. I might want to take care of this body.
Right.
um, and I looked at 47. I looked at myself in the mirror, and I look like a typical 47-year-old. I had a big old beer belly and no real muscle tone. I look like a lot of men in their mid to late 40s that just have been not really taking care of themselves, just living their life. So I set a 3-year goal. I said I will be in shape by 50. And being the very stubborn person that I am, I started training twice a day, 7 days a week. I did not miss a day for 3 years straight, which was overtraining completely. But with my OCD personality, I couldn't miss. I would be so highly upset if I was not on target to hit my goal of being in shape at 50. I took a bunch of sessions with a couple of different IFBB pro bodybuilders here in Jacksonville. And during those training sessions, I was picking their brain nonstop about nutrition, of course, because bodybuilders are the best dieters on the planet. And I pulled away from those conversations while they're teaching me how to properly lift weights and get the most out of that. I'm trying to learn about the diet side. And I pulled several things away from that. And it really was my ideology towards whole foods and a natural approach to what goes into your body. So about a year and a half into my fitness journey and starting to see some significant physical changes, not only just growing muscles and looking more fit, but being healthier because of giving up the drinking, the smoking, and all the processed food, I was actually getting healthier. And people started to notice, and my friend said, you know what, you really probably ought to be out there sharing this with people on social media. And that's where when I started the TikTok page, and started growing an audience and just sharing my experience. And we can kind of go a little further how it develops from there, but that's kind of the journey that got me to where I'm at.
So, yeah, and where I first really was intrigued by on TikTok was your theory. First, you said everything that is so true, and it needs to be said more. Diets, they're great. They're not great, but whatever. You can't stick to them. Nobody, if they were that easy, everybody would be on them. They're not easy. Counting macros is not realistic for 99% of the population. Your theory is so spot on. It's my favorite thing. I tell everybody about it. I try to live by it more and more. Walked, flown, grown, or swam. That philosophy. Tell them about it.
Yeah. So in my professional career as a real estate broker, I've had to train salespeople my whole life. It does no good as a real estate broker to hire an agent if you can't help them be successful, because you only get paid when they get paid. And what I realized was it made no sense to train salespeople in a way that they wouldn't do. So I always adjusted how I interacted with my real estate salespeople, and if I would teach them a great sales technique but they weren't going to do it, it was kind of a waste of their time and mine. And I realized most people fail at every diet they do because they're too restrictive, and people aren't going to count their calories, they aren't going to count their macros, and quite frankly, someone that's that disciplined doesn't need my help anyway. But most people aren't that disciplined. And I have the question happen all the time. Well, what's the best diet? The one you'll stick to. That's the best diet. If it works for you and you stick to it, then that's the best one. But how can we add some common sense approach to getting people eating healthier food and understanding a few things? And maybe I'm a little cynical, but I firmly believe that the way our food is advertised to us when it comes to processed food is very, very deceitful. And when you start looking at things that are sitting on the shelf that say diet or 0 calorie or 0 sugar or high protein or high fiber or low cholesterol, and then you really look at the ingredients, you're like, wait a minute, that stuff's all bad. Why is this advertised as diet or 0 calorie? It's this terrible, terrible ingredients. Well, there's not a lot of truth in the advertising in the processed food world. And so it really, I started going, well, all right, well, we've been around for who knows how long as modern humans, 200,000 years, 400,000, maybe millions. I don't think anyone really knows. But we have a symbiotic relationship with our environment. We evolved and our food evolved alongside of us. So I have that saying, WFGS, walked, flown, grown, or swam. It's not all that bad. And then when you analyze the percentage of processed food that the normal person eats, and you realize 60 or 70% of their diet is processed food that's really not part of that designed by nature. It's been designed in a laboratory to be able to make a product shelf stable, or to make the product cause a dopamine release in the brain so you crave it more. It's really not been designed with any care for your actual health. It's more about the processed ingredients are for, increasing the profit, because those, the product can be made cheaper and sit on the shelf longer. Well, those things aren't meant to go in the human body, and it causes all of these issues. I'm 100% convinced that the percentage of people that have diabetes, at least type 2 diabetes, that they've developed in later in life, is really from years of putting crap in their body that shouldn't be there. If they had a more natural whole foods diet, they probably wouldn't have developed diabetes. It's all those bad ingredients that aren't to go in the human body. So I teach people, just focus on whole foods in the beginning. I don't want you to do anything but become unaddicted to processed food. Just spend a significant amount of time asking yourself, when you're going to make a plate of food, has this walked, flown, grown, or swam? Could my ancestors have ate this 1,000 years ago? Then it's probably not all that bad for you. So that's a little bit on that aspect of it there.
So, Steve, what if I tell you, listen, I love bread. I don't want to give up bread. What would you say?
I'd say, well, your ancestors been making bread for thousands of years, and they weren't out of shape. First off, our ancestors were more physically active than we are. We should be physically active. And the reason why carbohydrates are so demonized in almost every diet that you look at is, and rightfully so, 95% of us have no physical, real regiment, no daily routine of actual physical activity. But I can assure you, as my time with, a couple of professional bodybuilders and fitness competitors actually eat carbohydrates. It's fuel for the workout. Now they may lessen the amount of carbs they eat closer to competition time and stuff like that to really lean out. But the reality is, carbs are you carb up before a good workout. That's your energy. It's the quickest, easiest fuel source for your body to burn. But when it comes to modern bread in the grocery store, on the actual bread aisle, the bread that's and I don't mean to demonize one particular brand, but just because everyone will know the name, Wonder Bread. If you're buying that Wonder Bread style bread, you have to ask yourself, what do they put in it that makes it be able to sit on my kitchen counter for 10 days and I can still eat it? It's not bad after 10 days. I can assure you, bread goes bad in 4 days when you bake it at home yourself. It's hard as a rock. You can't eat it. You got to throw it out. Bread is basically, and now there's some variants here depending on what type of bread you're cooking. Bread is water, yeast, and flour. But now if you go pick up that loaf of Wonder Bread, it's 24 ingredients. Well,
Right.
what are those other 24 ingredients? Those are things that allow it to be good for 10 days, which increases their profit margins, not your health. So, our great grandmothers all got up every morning and made fresh bread that day. That's just, bread was part of a normal staple diet. It has been for thousands of years. In different parts of the world. They make the pita bread, it's just normal. But eating that highly processed bread is significantly worse than if you were able to bake it at home yourself. And I actually did a great video a few days ago. My girlfriend and I were in the convenience store, and she grabbed an individually packaged apple fritter and she took a picture of the ingredients. There were 42 ingredients, and we both looked at each other and said, there's the problem. She came home and made an amazing apple fritter out of 7 ingredients. And these were things that we know what they are. And that's really kind of the outline of what I try to teach people. 90% of what we eat, and maybe we can only get to 70 or 80% of what we eat, is a single ingredient item from nature that's walked, flown, grown, or swam. And then the other 10 or 20% of things we're eating that are processed, so more than one ingredient, by definition, a whole food is a single ingredient item from nature. A processed food is anything with more than one ingredient in it. But just because it's processed with more than one ingredient doesn't mean it has to be all that bad. Maybe the 5 or 6 ingredients are things like in the example we just talked about with bread, water, yeast, and flour. Okay, I know exactly what those are. So when I teach someone how to pick what they're going to eat that's processed, well, usually no more than about 5, 6, or 7 ingredients that you can plainly, clearly read and know what they are. Because you're gonna have things that have more than one ingredient in them that you want to have. But can you read them? Do you know what they are? Then it's probably not all that bad. But if it sounds like some big long petrochemical name that you have no idea what it is, probably shouldn't put it in your body. So I keep it real simple like that. And people are able to stick to this not as a temporary diet, but as a way of life. And that's where the real benefits come in, is it's just what we do now. So back to the consistency thing. Over a long period of time, it really makes a difference. But I do want to say one of the biggest tricks here that people don't realize that's happening is whole foods are so much more nutritiously dense that their calorie count comes down, and they do go into reduction, caloric reduction, because processed food is so barren of nutrition. Your body tells you eat more calories because it's looking for the nutritional value that's just not there. And the processed food is designed to create a dopamine release that makes you want to eat more of it. So when you switch to a mostly whole foods diet, your body is satiated with more nutrition in less calories. So the deficit comes automatically without actually having to count the calories. Hopefully that makes sense.
That totally makes sense. I love this because it's so true. It's like I think this processed food is why all of us have so much inflammation and why we're all just feeling this way. Before we have to get on to the stem cells, because the stem cell patch. If you had to tell people one thing to give up right now, what is the number one thing you would tell people to give up right now and take out of their diet immediately?
Sodas.
Yep.
100% sodas. All sodas, including diet, and most specifically, ones that say diet or 0 calories, zero sugar. And it's not that they're better or worse than regular sodas, but the mindset that it creates, that it's not bad, it says zero sugar, or it's not bad, it says diet, or it says 0 calorie. No, you're already starting with a lie. Sodas, just someone that's and they're highly addictive. If you go hide a Diet Coke drinkers, if you go hide those, they'll fight you.
Yeah.
I mean, they're so addicted, they will physically have an altercation with you because you hid their Diet Cokes. That right there tells you there's something wrong. You shouldn't be addicted to something so bad that you want to fight for it. Certainly not a beverage. So that would be the number one first thing that I say you got to get out of them. Now, I'm a believer that you don't have to be as stubborn as me and cold turkey and go hardcore. There's some decent products out there. The prebiotic sodas are nowhere near as bad as a regular soda or a diet soda, but they will give you that bite that you're looking for, that quench, that it's almost like aspartame type of satisfaction when you drink it. So someone that's struggling to break the habit of the sodas, I would say, well, when you get that craving, don't say, well, I'm only going to have one Diet Coke today. Just say, well, I'm going to go grab a Pop Beer, an Olipop, or Spindrift. There's a dozen different prebiotic sodas out there that are nowhere near as bad as regular sodas. So that would be the number one thing I'd say. Start there.
Love it. Okay. So you talked about nutrition. You talked about this part of the nutrition. Now let's get into something. Let's get into the product that has me amazed. And so far, after 24 hours, patient number one is like, my body is feeling things. And a lot of people don't know about this. Please,
Yeah.
you are the king of it. The X39 stem cell reactivation patch. Tell us all about it, Steve. How did it start? How did you get involved?
Okay, so a good buddy of mine, we've been friends for a number of years, and of course, he knew my fitness journey, and he knew that I was very focused on, kind of a holistic approach to medicine and to health, and I'm fairly, due to my experience and my health issues in the past, I'd argue with my doctors in the past. Hey, how come every time I tell you I got a problem, you start reaching for that prescription pad? And my doctor, Dr. Theodore Glasser, he goes, Steve, we're practicing medicine here, man. We don't know what's really really going to happen. We just kind of practice on you and give you this and give you that. And, he told me there's only really three outcomes. He goes, either we get lucky and guess at some sort of pharmaceutical that's going to make you better. He goes, or your body heals itself or you die. I'm like, Doc, that's pretty scary. We're practicing medicine. I'm like, wow. So I've always had a weird look over the last 26 years since I got sick towards medicine. So when my buddy Mike Lanier brought me this product, he goes, Steve, I know you're out there helping people left and right with your journey and sharing what you've done. He goes, you really need to look at this product. You could probably help a lot of people. And he starts telling me about this product. And I'm like, okay, it sounds interesting. Well, I look at the research into it and realize that the scientists behind it has spent 10 years at the second largest stem cell research facility in the world at University of Galway in Ireland, doing the research on how to activate our own stem cells that naturally go dormant as we age. And the research really led to Dr. Lauren Picard in 1971 discovered a peptide in the human body called GHK-Cu. It is one of the most powerful peptides because it controls the activation of your regenerative system, your stem cells, how your body heals itself. And as we get older, our body simply produces less of the GHK-Cu. It's commonly referred to as the copper peptide or the beauty peptide because it makes you younger. So when Dr. Lauren Picard started studying the copper peptide, he quickly found out that it also it's the mechanism that causes aging, basically, because your body makes less of the copper peptide and your stem cells that replace other cells. They're the universal master cell. The stem cells can fix the other cells when they go bad. And he said, well, man, if we could, elevate the copper peptide, the stem cells wake back up. And so this inventor, David Schmidt, who now holds over 200 patents in health and wellness, spent 10 years, over 80 clinical studies, figuring out how to do this. He had already perfected patch technology for the Department of Defense in 1998. The DoD hired him to create a patch for energy for Tier 1 operators in a single man submarine. And those Tier 1 operators would have to stay awake for 2 or 3 days at a time. And they didn't want to pump them full of amphetamines. So he had already had the patch technology worked out. And he wanted to figure out how to use it to create the right frequency to tell the body to produce the copper peptide. So I knew the science was just amazing and I geeked out on it. I really dove into the science and I told my buddy Mike, yeah, let me try this thing out. And for me, I had had horrible sleep since I was sick. For 20 years, I hadn't slept good. First night I put it on, I'm like, man, that was some solid recuperative sleep. And then, of course, the next day I'm just walking around walking like I'm taller. I'm like, man, I just feel good. And I'd actually at the time had a really stiff neck that my chiropractor just could not get rid of for like 4 days. Or for like 4 months, I couldn't turn to the right, all the way. It just looked silly, like it's just a stiff neck. And my chiropractor goes, yeah, you just got some really bad inflammation in there. We just can't seem to get it worked out. Within a few days on the patch, that was gone. And then I was like, okay, I'm gonna keep wearing this thing. And then the benefits just keep coming. And now I'm 18 months into wearing it. At 51 years old, I run around like a 25-year-old. I'm not wearing glasses anymore. About 3 months in, I started lifting up my readers. And then 7 months, I took them off and just don't need them anymore. And, so I've been a year without glasses. My hair is growing like crazy and getting darker. My skin's looking better. But the main thing for me is the overall just energy I have to conquer the day. So I've been sharing the product on my social media for the last year and a half. And I have now literally hundreds of customers with the most amazing testimonies, some of which you just like, is this person serious? I mean, people from MS to lupus to dialysis to diabetes is one of the ones I'm so amazed with. So many people with diabetes and it's so interesting too. Someone with diabetes, obviously, they're usually pricking their finger and checking their blood sugars every few hours before they eat. They can actually, over a few weeks' time, see that they need less and less and less insulin. And now I've got several dozen people go, yeah, I just don't need to take any more insulin. I prick my finger, my A1C is perfect. That is so outstanding to me. So many things like that. And I'm just having the time of my life sharing it with people and hearing the testimonies. So there's a little bit on where I'm at with that. What where else would you like to go in that conversation? Because that keeps going.
Yeah, no, I've seen, I've seen it. It's not one of those things where it's like, I'm listening to you and you're telling us that, people have had good results. I'm always going to be a skeptic first. It's just how I am. Because everybody's marketing to everybody. And you see the stem cell word, like I've done my research, and so everybody uses that word or reactivation. They use it kind of loosely when they shouldn't be, because a product like this that actually holds the correct patents
Yeah.
and things like that. But I see the people that really are affected by it, that it changes their life. Is this product here, is it something that people, do they stay on it for a few months, then get off? They stay on it for
Yeah.
a year? What do you see?
Yeah, here's the thing, and first let me also back up too, as an independent distributor, because once I realized what I had here, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going to share this with thousands of people. As an independent distributor, they don't let me make a medical claim or a promise or a guarantee, but I can share testimonies firsthand. Hey, this guy said it did this guy did that, but look at the research. So I can't make like a medical claim or promise, but it's almost crazy the number of people that say just the it's been so life changing. And I think that the real answer is we don't fully the average person doesn't fully understand exactly what a stem cell is. It is the universal master cell in the human body. Every single cell in your body started out as a stem cell while you were developing in the womb, but your body leaves, I don't know, billions of them in reserve. As a young person, your body is constantly replacing other cells as they age out or they go bad or become corrupted. Your body has all these reserve stem cells to replace them. But that system just kind of starts going dormant due to age. And so this is really biohacking. This product just says, well, you know what? Let's wake up that system again. So your body thinks you're younger and you start feeling younger. It's just absolutely outstanding.
Can you explain to the listeners about what I was telling you before we started? Because I was kind of excited about it, but I was also kind of interested about how patient number one, in the first 24 hours, the way he explained it was, after wearing the patch, he feels like his body all over is sore, but in a very good way, if that makes any sense. Can you explain why he might be feeling that in the first 24?
Yeah, absolutely. So in the human body, we have somewhere between 15 and 16,000 genes. And the research on this product shows that about 4,000 genes begin to reset as soon as you put on the patch. As soon as your body starts producing that copper peptide and waking up those stem cells, about 4,000 genes that begin to reset. That's almost like, if you think about like a snake shedding its skin or something like that, it really is kicking out those, or how about defragging or resetting your computer? It's just, hey, let's go back to the factory reset. Let's just revert these genes to a younger, more youthful state. So when a third of the genes in your body reset to a more youthful state, you notice it pretty quickly. It's a pretty amazing result. Typically, most of my customers will notice better sleep and better energy even within just a few days.
Okay. Who is not who is the stem cell reactivation patch not good for? Like, who doesn't need it?
Well, it's good for everyone, first off. Now, typically, what happens by the age of 30 is when 50% of your stem cells have gone dormant. By the age of 60, 90% of the stem cells have gone dormant. So the actual, wow, I noticed this working tends to be people 30, north of 30 years old, because they start living with aches and pains like they're normal, and we just get used to it. We get used to poor sleep and poor energy. Now, I'm certainly not saying that younger people don't get benefits on a cellular level, but they just simply don't have the same level of aches and pains, so they tend to notice it less. But by the time you get to 50 years old, you just used to crappy sleep and bad energy and aches and pains. So when that goes away, it's pretty profound. You're like, wow, I feel great. But someone in their teens always feels great. Now, a younger person that's had a tough medical history, been through a childhood disease or illness or something, even some of those have some pretty profound benefits. And I'll go one step further. There are hundreds of videos on YouTube right now of people that take their old patch off, and rather than throw it away, they go tape it to their dogs. You got an older dog that's got like hip dysplasia or something. He's slow to get up and slow to move around. Put the patch on him for a week or two. You see Fido running around like a whole new zest for life. Those videos are really cool to watch because you're like, all right, obviously that dog's not bullshitting people.
That's right.
Yeah, yeah.
Steve, I want to thank you for coming on and just offering us so much time to talk about, the stem cell and then obviously the nutrition part of it. So I want people to see, I want them to understand like how valuable your content is. Where can we send people to see you on the daily?
Stem Cell Steve on TikTok. I do have two pages that are both titled Stem Cell Steve. The bigger one has about 50,000 followers. If you follow me there, I go live 2 or 3 times a day. And then I'm building a backup page, just the unfortunate nature of social media. You got to have a backup page. So Stem Cell Steve is the name of both of them. But the bigger page with, I think, 47,000 people, I'm live on there several times a day. And the other place that I should really give reference to is thisisit.info.com. That's the website where you can look at the patent on this product. You can listen to doctor reviews on this product. You can look at over 80 clinical studies on this product. So thisisit.info.com. If you check out that, you're going to be blown away. And then David Schmidt on YouTube. If you just type in David Schmidt LifeWave, the inventor is humbling. 5 minutes of listening to the inventor of this product and his science, you will be in awe of that man's brilliance. So those are the two main places I would say you can check out and really learn more.
Thank you. Okay, so you heard it. Stem Cell Steve on TikTok. All you have to do is put it in. It's so easy to find. Everybody, I will have links in the description with this podcast. If you're interested in purchasing right away and you don't even want to wait for our little docu-series to finish, we'll show you a way that you can purchase more info. And we'll also link what Steve said as well. Steve, thank you so much. We'll be in touch. I want to thank you for your time. You're awesome. Thank you very, very much.
Absolutely, Kate. It was my pleasure. You can have me back anytime.
Breaking rules while they laughing.
Thanks, Steve.
Everybody tunes in cause they love these fools. Do I flip in the boom bap? You turn it up loud for the talking fools. Do I flip in the boom bap? You turn it up loud for the talking fools. We spinning stories like vinyl gold. Yeah, take piss warming up every episode. We don't stay on cue, we just go where it flows. Chaos and control, that's the way the show goes.